Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Well, right in the middle of making a sawtill, had an incident. Now I need to replace this shaft. And I went looking and I don't have a piece of this what's called oak dowel anymore. It doesn't look like oak now that it's broken. It looks like some kind of an odd simulated oak. It doesn't have the medullary rays that I would expect to see in oak, and where it's snapped, it's actually kind of a short-grained, hollow. This is the oddest looking oak that I've ever seen. It broke different than what I expect oak to. It has large veins in it, pretty lightweight. Maybe it's oak that grew rapidly. It might be like second growth oak or something, but it's not very good. So I'm not going to use that piece of dowel anymore. The end pieces, they're still in good shape. That's made out of old pallet boards, and they're solid as the dickens. But we'll see how this laminated bamboo does. So I'm going to bore the knobs out and make a new shaft. Have this old broom handle, and the broom handle is made out of bamboo, which is amazingly strong. It's very hard, and it doesn't bend easily, and when it breaks it tends to just kind of bend and then splinter. So I'm hopeful that this is going to work better. Dave Chadwick mentioned putting a piece of 1/4-inch threaded rod in it, and I think that's a great idea. If I'm going to be putting as much force on this vise as what I have been, I need to improve the strength of the handle. I shouldn't be pulling that hard, but the part was slipping in the vise. So to correct multiple problems, first I need to put leather in the jaws, so it's got a little softer grip and it grabs a hold of the part better. And then I'm going to use this piece of bamboo, and also I'm going to put a piece of 1/4-inch rod down the center of it to add some strength to it. So that's my project for this morning. I've already got the wood cut off. It's in the lathe already. I'm going to turn it down to size. I could do this on the wood lathe, but it's a little easier to do on the metal lathe because it has the power traverse, and it just cuts round things real easy. Makes nice cylinders. Turn this dowel down. I turned this section of broom handle down to match the size of the dowel that I had. Is it important to exactly match the size of the dowel? No. But this dowel fits. It's a little small in the hole, but that's okay. Now there's all different kinds of ways to measure this thing. I can say, well, it matches the dowel, which is good enough. It fits the process. Or I can say, yeah, I've checked it with the calipers, and the calipers say that it is 7/8 of an inch in diameter. Pretty close. Now if I was interested in knowing exactly what size this shaft is, I use the calipers, check the calipers, run it against the scale. I know what size this dowel is. I could also use, this is called a Circles inking template made by Pickett. Part number 1200I. Don't know why I is in there, but that's what they got. Maybe it means inking. This is just a series of holes. This is a 13/16. No, excuse me. This is a 15/16, and the dowel rattles in it. This is the 13/16, and the dowel won't go. It goes into the 7/8. Now this is wood. Depends on what day it is, whether it's going to be one size or the next, how much humidity it has in it. So really saying it's a 7/8 dowel, it's a nominal size. They said when we turned it, it was 7/8. It might have shrunk a little bit, might have got a little bit bigger, but it's right around 7/8. So I've made this size to match that dowel that I had in there. Now I'm going to sand it. Because it's a lot easier to sand it when it's in the lathe. I'm using up some old sandpaper. This is Pro Source from Big Lots, 99 cents. Not Harbor Freight. Big Lots, worse than Harbor Freight. You get what you pay for. I got sandpaper with chunks of sand missing. Looks like it was kind of smeared around during processing. But I'm going to use this up because all I want to do is just knock off the fuzz on this thing so that I can get it finished down. I don't want to get splinters from the bamboo. Now I'm going to talk a minute about sanding on the lathe. We're going to do this with the power off because one of the things that I'm going to be showing you is a dangerous thing. I see people folding the sandpaper over and running it back and forth like that. Well, that sounds like a heck of an idea because, you know, it wraps all the way around and you can move it easily and it actually works. It works quite well. There's a problem with that though. When you're wrapping the sandpaper around it, it can grab a hold. And if you get it wrapped around like that, it's got quite a bit of grip on there. And the tighter you pull it, the more it grips. So when this lathe wraps on around and catches a hold of that stuff, it'll yank your hand right in there. Next thing you know, your finger's in behind the sandpaper and you've hurt yourself pretty bad. Now it can go as far, if you've got a good grip on that thumb, now it's going to take your hand. And it won't stop there. Sure, you can reach over and hit the stop button, you can have all kinds of emergency equipment available, you can do all kinds of things. But once that rips into your hand and either takes a thumb off, or even worse, takes a wrist or an arm completely all the way up to your shoulder, which has happened. Once that's gone, the ease and efficiency of doing this sandpaper wrapped around the shaft really doesn't make any sense. If you're going to sand with a piece of sandpaper, hold it flat on the palm of your hand and run it like that as a pad. It's better to have a small pad so that it can't wrap around. That way, as the thing is spinning, if it catches, it just yanks it out of your hand. Now, can you get hurt doing that? Of course you can. You get hurt walking up the stairs. But does this help? Yeah, it makes it, don't grip it with your thumb, put it on your hand and run it back and forth as the thing is spinning. You'll do a much better job. Now we'll plug the lathe in. Still wants to pull out of your hand, doesn't it? That's where this comes in. Doesn't let the sandpaper wrap around the shaft. Gives you a good handhold. It doesn't get hot against your hand. does a nice job of smoothing that up. No more splinters. So my suggestion is, don't use loose sandpaper. It doesn't work very well. Don't wrap it around. That's dangerous. Put it on a sanding block. Now, this is a nice fancy little sanding block. I used it for auto body, and it's for wet and dry sandpaper. It's got a nifty little way of attaching the paper to it. But you can take a wood block and staple the paper to it on the ends. You can glue the paper to a wood block. You can make one of the sandpaper files that I made. Any of those things work. Just don't wrap that paper around the shaft and hold on to it. Doing it with your handheld like that, this is better. It's gonna slip out of your fingers. Okay, your hand doesn't go into the machine. Don't grab a hold of it, don't wrap it around, don't do like that. Any of those things are a real recipe for disaster. Okay, now we've got this cut down to size. We're going to drill a hole completely down through the center of this thing. And now that I have the bamboo turned down, before I drill it, I have to cut off one end so that I can get it into the chuck. While I'm at it, I might as well just cut off both ends. Now I'll bore down through the center of those with a 7/8 drill. I'll be able to glue that in there. But first, I have to drill the length of this to allow for the 1/4 inch rod to go down through there. I am having a bit of delamination, which doesn't bode well for the part, but I think it was just a case of when I broke through with the saw, I put more pressure on that one little strip of bamboo and tore it loose. That's going to be inside the knob, but even so, I don't want to have this little tab sticking up where it's broken. So I'm going to put some glue on that and a bit of masking tape, hold that together while I'm doing the rest of the work. Does a nice job of maneuvering things around. And this blue tape is from Harbor Freight. It is the worst blue tape in the world. Doesn't hold to hardly anything, so I'm using it up wherever I can in places that don't require a lot of strength. Like this is pretty much a toss-off operation. That'll let that glue set up while it's inside the chuck, and that should take care of the issue. I want to make sure and close up this Gorilla Glue because it sets up if you leave the cap open, and you'll have a whole bottle full of rock. Well, that's a problem. I blew right through the side of it. So this handle is pretty much scrap. Tried to make a shortcut, and I was doing good until I tried to do it by hand. I'll just have to start over again. I think drilling from both ends would be a better way to go. Because as soon as you're not going to be able to see it in the bore, but as soon as I stopped using the lathe, it started climbing. And the drill bit bent right up and went on out. Followed the path of least resistance and went right through the side. So now I have two handles that are broken. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.